The human brain, an intricate network of approximately 86 billion neurons, is the central organ of the nervous system. With complex synaptic transmission and dynamic plasticity, it governs cognition, motor functions, and homeostatic regulation. In this video, we will delve into the structural and functional anatomy of the brain, neural communication mechanisms, and neuroplasticity. Let's explore the marvel of human cognition. The brain consists of three primary regions: the cerebrum, cerebellum, and brainstem. Each of these regions is highly specialized and contains unique anatomical features that facilitate its function. The cerebrum, which contains four lobes, is the largest region, composed of the left and right hemisphere. It is responsible for advanced cognitive functions such as executive reasoning, language processing, and voluntary motor control. The corpus callosum, a dense bundle of myelinated fibers, facilitates interhemispheric communication. The cerebral cortex, which forms the outermost layer of the cerebrum, is composed of gray matter and is responsible for processing sensory input, coordinating motor activity, and enabling complex cognitive functions. Here we have the gray matter highlighted in an image of the brain. The cerebral cortex is characterized by gyri and sulci, which increase the surface area for neuronal processing. Notable sulci include the central sulcus, separating the frontal and parietal lobes, and the lateral sulcus, which delineates the temporal lobe. Here we have them highlighted on an image of the brain. Beneath the cerebral cortex lies the white matter, consisting of myelinated axons that facilitate rapid communication between different brain regions. The three primary types of fibers are association, commissural, and projection fibers, which allow for intrahemispheric and interhemispheric connectivity. The basal ganglia, a subcortical structure within the cerebrum, plays a critical role in motor control, habit formation, and reward-based learning. Dysfunctions in the region are implicated in movement disorders such as Parkinson's and Huntington's disease. Broca's and Wernicke's area, located in the dominant hemisphere, are essential for speech production and language comprehension. Damage to these areas can result in expressive or receptive aphasia. Now, the cerebellum is located posteriorly. It is integral to proprioception, motor coordination, and balance. It refines movement execution via feedback loops with the motor cortex and spinal cord. Here we have it highlighted on an image of the brain. The cerebellum is divided into two hemispheres. In the middle of these hemispheres, it contains a structure known as a vermis, which plays a critical role in postural control. The cerebellum has a highly folded surface, increasing the number of neurons within a compact space, allowing for precise motor coordination. The cerebellum interacts with the vestibular system to maintain equilibrium and adjust motor output based on sensory feedback. Now let us delve into the brainstem, the most evolutionary conserved structure. The brainstem regulates autonomic functions including respiration, cardiac rhythm, and reflex arts. It consists of the midbrain, pons, and medulla oblongata, each playing an important role in sensory motor integration. The midbrain contains the superior and inferior colici, which are involved in visual and auditory processing. The pons will act as a relay station between the cerebrum and cerebellum, also playing a role in sleep and respiratory rhythm. The medulla oblongata controls vital autonomic functions such as heart rate, blood pressure, and digestion through its connection to the vagus nerve. The brainstem also contains crucial nuclei for cranial nerve function, ensuring sensory and motor communication between the brain and body. The brain is divided into four lobes: the frontal lobe, parietal lobe, temporal lobe, and occipital lobe. Here we have them highlighted in a figure of the brain. The frontal lobe is the command center of the brain, responsible for executive functions such as reasoning, problem solving, voluntary movement, and personality expression. It also plays a crucial role in emotional regulation and social behavior. The parietal lobe processes sensory information from the body, including touch, temperature, pain, and pressure. The somatosensory cortex is located here and is responsible for processing sensations from the body. The parietal lobe is also involved in spatial awareness and coordination, helping you understand where you are in relation to your surroundings. It can also contribute to the ability to perform complex tasks like reading. The temporal lobe is essential for auditory processing, language comprehension, and memory formation. It houses structures crucial for recognizing faces, emotions, and encoding long-term memory. The occipital lobe is the primary center for visual processing. It also interprets signals from the eyes, allowing us to perceive and recognize shape, color, and movement. Now that we've explored the major structures of the brain, let's examine the functional cortical areas, specific regions of the cerebral cortex that process sensory input, initiate motor function, and contribute to higher-order cognitive process. Motor and sensory processing centers include the primary motor cortex, premotor cortex, and supplementary motor area, and the primary somatosensory cortex. The primary motor cortex is located in the frontal lobe and controls voluntary movement with the somatotopic map known as the motor homunculus. Here we have an image of the motor homunculus. The premotor cortex and supplementary motor area refines and plans movement execution. The primary somatosensory cortex, which is located in the parietal lobe, processes touch, pressure, pain, and proprioception. Language and auditory processing centers include Broca's area, Wernicke's area, and the primary auditory cortex. Broca's area is located in the frontal lobe and coordinates speech production. Wernicke's area is located in the temporal lobe and enables language comprehension. The primary auditory cortex in the temporal lobe processes auditory information. Higher cognitive and visual processing centers are located within the prefrontal cortex, primary visual cortex, visual association areas, and posterior parietal cortex. The prefrontal cortex in the frontal lobe regulates decision-making, impulse control, and social behavior. The primary visual cortex, located in the occipital lobe, receives and interprets visual signals. Visual association areas in the occipital and temporal lobe process complex visual information. Posterior parietal cortex integrates sensory input for spatial reasoning. Neurons communicate through action potentials, electrochemical signals that propagate along axons to transmit information from sensory receptors to the brain and between different brain regions. An action potential begins when the neuron's membrane depolarizes, opening voltage-gated sodium channels. Sodium floods into the cell, raising the membrane potential. Repolarization follows as potassium channels open, restoring the negative membrane potential. As the action potential travels along the axon, it reaches the axon terminal, where neurotransmitters are released into the synaptic cleft, binding to postsynaptic receptors and transmitting the signal to the next neuron or target cell. The limbic system is a network of interconnected structures that regulate emotion, memory, and homeostatic function. The hippocampus, highlighted here, is essential for the consolidation of long-term memory. The amygdala processes emotions such as fear, anxiety, and reward. Here we have it highlighted. The hypothalamus controls autonomic and endocrine functions via the hypothalamic pituitary axis. The cingulate gyrus is involved in emotional regulation and pain processing. The brain possesses an extraordinary capacity for neuroplasticity, the ability to reorganize its structure and function in response to experience or injury. Synaptic plasticity is long-term potentiation and long-term depression, strengthening or weakening synaptic connections based on activity. Cortical reorganization is when adjacent brain regions can assume functions of damaged areas following an injury. Experience-dependent plasticity is when learning and memory are facilitated by repeated neural activity. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. Enjoy.